In 1776, the thing most likely to kill you was smallpox. Today, it's heart disease. Completely different killer, but the same result. So here's the question that nobody's asking. We just celebrated the 250th anniversary of the United States of America. What's actually killing the church? And has that changed too? We're going to talk about that today. Hi there. Welcome to the Healthy Church Staff Podcast. My name's Todd Rhodes, one of the co-founders over at chemistrystaffing.com. In 1776, the church would actually flunk your dashboard. I read an article this past week on what killed Americans back in 1776 versus what's killing Americans today. I couldn't put the article down. In 1776, when our nation was founded, what were the top killers of people? Smallpox, tuberculosis, dysentery. Life expectancy in 1776, this is hard to believe, but in 1776, the life expectancy was 30. So I asked, what did the church look like in 1776? And here's the shocker. Only about 17% of colonists were even connected to a church. 17%. Powdered wigs and a Bible on every table. That's the myth that we have. But a lot of the founding fathers of the country were people of faith. But drop a church consultant into 1776, and he's going to start writing the obituary of the church right on the spot. And here's the thing. That church consultant would be dead wrong. That's anemic, that anemic little church that was about to explode into the biggest growth run in its history ever. So here's a truth bomb for you. Low numbers have never been a death sentence. Sometimes they're just the starting line. So that's the first insight. The second insight I'd love to share for you today is that full church buildings can hide just a really sick heart. So we started talking about 1776. Let's move forward, fast forward, to the early 1900s. And in the church, membership is climbing. We talked about the 17% of colonists that were actually connected to a church. By 1937, that 17% had risen to 73%. 73% of people, of Americans in 1937, belonged to a church. 2 out of 3 were raised Protestant. Buildings were packed. They looked absolutely bulletproof. They looked thriving. And listen, the scariest diseases can be the quiet ones. Heart disease doesn't announce itself. It builds for decades while you feel fine. And that's exactly what was happening under all of those full church buildings and full pews. What we got over years was inherited faith, nominal membership, belonging to a church without any transformation. I'm a member of this church, I'm a Presbyterian, I'm a Baptist, but they couldn't tell you why generation happened during this time in the 1900s. The church looked healthiest right when it was quietly underneath everything getting sick. So that's insight number 2. Here's what I would say about today. Today's numbers are a diagnosis, not a death certificate. Now, Protestants have been down to about 40% of the country, from 51% back in 2007 to 40% in last year, 2025. Nuns, the religious nuns, rose up to 29%. And in 2020, church membership had dropped below half the population for the first time ever. It feels like a funeral, right? But that's just chronic disease. And chronic disease shows up because people live long enough to get it. The cultural Christianity of the 1900s had no pulse underneath. Two generations later, the bill became due, and people stopped showing up because a lot of them had nothing to show up really for. So let's wrap this all up. Differences between 1776, the 1900s, and today. Wrapping that up with kind of what I started with, the cause of death. Death is still with us. The average age went from 30 years up to about 80 years. So we added literally 50 years onto the average person's lifespan. But guess what? Death still happened. The patient endures. And here's what kind of hit me the hardest. For every era, the 1900s, and the 2020s, the church's killer, the thing that really gets to us, is totally different. 1776, it was tiny and scattered. In 1900s, it was cultural rot behind the full church building. And today, it's the drift, it's the nuns. And just like disease, smallpox to heart disease, different century, different killer. But medicine never cured death. And what we do today is not going to cure the ailments that the church has. It's just different. Things just kept outlasting whatever it was trying to end us at the time. So the church has done the exact same thing for 250 years. And the part the doom scrollers skip is that same 2025 study showing the decline. It also shows the decline has slowed. Many of those things that had been going down for years have slowed down or leveled off. Attendance has been holding steady in churches for 5 years running. And guess what? The patient's still breathing. The church is still alive. So here's your bottom line for today. Don't confuse the current cause of decline with the death of the church. Causes change, but the patient, the church, will endure. The obituary's been written every single generation about the church, and every single one of them has been premature. You know what? If your church is in transition or need a little help wondering how this affects you, how your church's smaller attendance might be actually the starting line for something really great, I'd love to hear your story and love to have you reach out to me. You can reach me at podcast@chemistrystaffing.com. Love to have a conversation. If your church is looking to hire or anything healthy church staff related, hiring, firing, budgeting, reorg, that's what we do at Chemistry. Reach out to me anytime, podcast@chemistrystaffing.com. All right, that's it for today. Hope you'll join me again right here tomorrow on the Healthy Church Staff Podcast. Have a great day.